Hi there. So I was just wondering if you could dwell on this subject and delve on this subject, which is about this global outlook. So is this word global? Is it become a very fancy word, an imaginary word, or is there an element of practicality to it? Is there an element of actuality to it? Is it real? Or it's a nice word that appears on newspaper articles, on interviews when the academicians or the economists or the scientists and all of them, the specialists, etc., use that word. Is there a philosophical underpinning to this word? What is the relevance of this word when you come and talk about, let's say, the transformation of a human being? So, what is the connection between the two? Is there a connection at all, or are they very two divergent things? One has no relation to the other, they are mutually exclusive. Is that the way we look at it, or is there a greater meaning to it? So let's try and see if we can peel or peel the layers of this word and see where it is taking us in terms of comprehending it in the context of transformation of human beings. Now there are two aspects to it. One is the fact about transformation of a human being. Many of us do realize the discomfort, the anxiety, and the pressures and the stresses that we encounter and go through in this modern day living. There are these economic pressures, the social pressures, the political pressures, the family pressures, etc., etc. And it is in this context that we are leading our existence. Then there is also the other view that, if you have a global outlook, if you have a global perspective, and you try to become a global citizen and not live in a very parochial, some sort of, a myopic, insular sort of a state or a condition, then that can also help you in terms of being, having a, let's say, a more divergent thinking. Your mind can open like a parachute. You can sort of see the world from a 30,000 feet. You get a 30,000 feet view, etc., etc. But then, on examining this word global, or the term global, the global outlook and global everything, one is finding some kind of or one is reaching some kind of a cul-de-sac, a blind alley, because whichever corner of the world you try and see, okay, I want to look to an advanced country, I want to look to a Western nation, I want to look to some Southeast Asian economy, I want to look at the powers that are there in the Middle East, some of them are doing fabulously, etc., etc. There is generally it is at a very outer level. So the externalization of the whole thing in terms of trade, in terms of commerce, in terms of materialism, consumerism, travel, logistics, what have you. So everything is very outer, everything is very outside. So it's more, let's say, what the goings on that is there in the materialistic facet of existence. But then the underlying fact is that human beings deep down, inwardly, internally, in terms of nature and characteristics of mind and emotions, there is a common thread to all human beings in the world, which is that we all go through some kind of suffering, physical suffering, emotional suffering. Some of these qualities, emotional qualities, are common to all of us, which is about hope, despair, ambition, greed, competitiveness, brutality, envy. These more or less, it may be in more and some, less in some, but by and large, these are all of these. The mental makeup or the content of consciousness is more or less similar to all human beings. So what we see is only different. We see a white skin, we see a brown skin or a black skin. We see somebody traveling in a stretched limousine. We see somebody going in a bicycle. Someone living in a palatial bungalow. Someone in a hutment. So these are some of the outward differences. But if you peel away all of that, at its core, the stark reality or the fact is that there is this inward content which is common to all human beings. So, however much I try to have a global outlook, that is only in terms of aping or emulating or imbibing certain outward characteristics, but does not have too much of a bearing on the inward characteristics. It does not seem, if I look at a Westerner, I seem to look at it in terms of trying to see how much I can get the material comforts that they enjoy. How can I have, let's say, cleaner facilities, more hygiene, better roads without potholes, maybe, various other formalities, the government formalities or any other formalities, the bureaucratic, etc., the red tape. Maybe is that better there? We don't know. Maybe it's as bad as anywhere else. But then the fact is, we try and see whether these are things that we can ape and emulate and improve here. Or you look at some kind of, let's say, the enterprise and the hard work that these Southeast Asian economies have put in over the last 30 or 40 years, which is again from a very materialistic perspective. They've all really tried to come from, bottom up. They were really down in the dumps. They were all having their own problems in terms of wars and various other things. They were really backward, but then they have really moved up. But again, that's from a very materialistic background. They have folks who now make and sell mobile phones all over the world. They make chips. They make high-end electronic goods. So all of this is there. But then the fact is, you visit a house of a person living in the Far East or in the Western economy, whether it's the Europe or the American continent, you find that inwardly they seem to be sharing the same problems as with somebody else in, let's say, in the remote sub-Saharan Africa, or for example, let's say, remote parts of the cold Russia, or for example, even the Indian subcontinent. So this is possibly an issue that we need to really confront, understand and comprehend, because unless otherwise it is inside out driven. This outside in kind of a, let's say, approach does not seem to take us anywhere. However much we measure the happiness quotient of a country, of a state, of a group of people, the situation prevailing in a particular environment, let's say particular geography, in terms of the fact that there aren't any wars there, or they are, let's say, apparently peaceful, apparently calm, going about their daily routines, happy life, healthy life, etc. These are all again measurements on the outside. Nobody, there isn't a doctor who's able to examine what's going on in the inside of our consciousness, in the inside of our minds. Even if it is a psychologist who's trying to give some a test to determine our mental characteristics, our mental makeup, emotional makeup. But then those again to some extent are very individualistic in nature. It says you are a little more aggressive, you got to tone it down. You seem to fly off the handle, you got to keep yourself in check. Now don't be over expressive. People may misread, so you just ensure that kind of temper it down. These are the kind of observations and the recommendations that people make. But then nobody is able to say, look, I will be able to, through my psychological examination, wipe out suffering from your mental makeup, wipe out ambition, wipe out greed, or wipe out envy, because these are the things that are gnawing us. These are the things that are eating away the peace and calm of our minds. And that seems to be a common characteristic across all human beings in the world. So if at all I need to have a global outlook, I think we may have to rephrase it and say global inward outlook. It may sound paradoxical or a contradiction in terms, an oxymoron kind of thing, but however, I think there is a reality to it. There is a relevance to spelling it that way. Simply because the consciousness or the content of consciousness is common to all of mankind, whichever part of the society they are in, whichever part of the geography they are in, and it cuts across economic strata. It doesn't matter whether you are educated, illiterate, the very rich, the very poor. It doesn't matter if you are a politician, a beggar, a head of a state, a head of a country. That doesn't really a minister or just an average Joe, an ordinary man who's turning the wheels in an assembly floor. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's this kind of the emotional makeup, the emotional content is common to all of the human beings. We have troubles in relationships. We have troubles with the way we ideate, with the way we think, with the way we generate thoughts. We are in conflict with ourselves. We are also conflict in our relationship with other human beings. So all of these issues are there. So I think what I really wanted to emphasize and drive home and accentuate here is the fact that there is a point beyond which this word global does not seem to have a very great significance. It is okay from an external perspective, as I sort of detailed earlier in the discussion. However, deep down, what is really important to understand is how we are actually connected globally in terms of our content of consciousness. If that understanding is there, then I think it is easier to hold hands, metaphorically speaking, and empathize and relate to somebody, even if that somebody is either living next door or within your own house or 5 miles away or 5,000 miles away. I think that's the essence or the quintessence of what globalism, globalization, global outlook, etc. Needs to be looked at. I think it needs to be looked at with that lens. So let's all try and examine this beyond what I have shared with you all. Maybe it is more just an introductory or a preamble kind of thing. I think it's left to a lot of us later on after this to really examine, to explore, to probe, and try and let's say make out a much more sense out of this thing, so that we become human beings who are in the real sense, connected globally, not just in terms of the fact that we import some fancy car from Germany and drive it, and then we export something else from here, and somebody else uses it who's 10,000 miles away, and then we are all saying, yeah, it's a connected world, it is a globally connected world, we are a global village, the world has become small, etc., etc. That's all. That's, I think, jargon and external, but to really internalize it is what is important. I think that's very, very important to set the stage and to let's say set in motion the process of peace, happiness, and a kind of a better society, which is what we are all working towards. Thank you.